Hello everyone, how's it going? Zombear Vincent here. It's been a while since I've done anything. End of sentence. But I wanted to come back and do a little bit of a commentary on a video I saw that is dumb and stupid and dumb and I hate. So, I've decided to kidnap my good friend. He's gonna help me out in discussing this strange video that has like 100,000 views and a huge like ratio. That's about why it's time to let the West fall. So we're gonna talk about this video.
Can I say a joke that I'm not sure will actually make it in the end?
I've got an editor, that's fine, go for it.
Okay. How can the blacks take over the West if they can't even take back Africa?
That's going in the video. Anyways, let's... how to start. I recorded an intro already, so I'm just gonna hard
let's
to
just
this.
get into the video.
Hi, Tucker.
This may be a lot of things, this moment we're living through, but it is definitely not about black lives. And remember that when they come for you, and at this rate, they will.
And the last 4 years of living in the increasingly and now overtly anti-white West has been quite the rude awakening. And by the West, I mean the political, judicial, social, corporate, financial, religious and cultural institutions that govern our lives, and which all now preach the gospel of multiculturalism, which is at the root of all the anti-white hatred we see around us.
Okay, that was a long sentence. So he means, like, all the stuff in the West, when he discusses the West. And that includes, like, America, that includes Canada, that includes Europe. I don't think he's including South America when he says the West. Because when you say the terms like the West, you end up excluding a lot of things that aren't white because it doesn't fit. But that's what he's referring to in the video.
I always wondered why that happened, because, like, South America's in the West.
Yeah.
So, like, it should be part of the West, but if you're not white, you're not Western.
Yeah, that's probably the thing about it, is that saying the West is typically saying, like, white-built society, as opposed to South America, which is more Spanish and Hispanic-built.
I mean, it was still white-built. It was built by Spain, which is white,
Spains
and
aren't
Portugal.
Real whites. No, yeah.
So what are we just gonna go through and be like, well, you're not white enough, so like you're
Isn't
not
that
Western?
what we did to the Irish? That's what.
No,
that's literally what we did to the Irish. We said
That is
they
what we
weren't
did to the
white.
Irish.
Yeah.
That's fair.
We don't really have serious objections, do we, to him just speaking words of like,
No,
oh,
not
yeah,
yet.
I liked Trump.
Yeah, so for the first minute and 10, I'm just kind of like, okay, and then this is downhill from here.
These institutions have damaged our way of life to the point of no return. They have been hijacked and turned against us and cannot be reformed. And as long as we live under them, our suffering will only increase. They have...
So this is him discussing how institutions are anti-white and we won't be able to reform them and we shall just suffer because our institutions in the West are anti-white. And before they were pro-white, so clearly reform's possible, but he's just saying to give up.
I don't understand what like what do you mean reform's not possible and just to give up?
Yeah,
What
he makes mention throughout the video that like it's time to just prepare and hunker down and be ready for our governments to collapse because the non-whites are here. And we'll get to when he starts talking about the non-whites. But that's kind of his argument, is that it's all going to collapse and there's no way to reform it, so we just got to hunker down. Even though originally it was all pro-white, which means if this is true, clearly some reforms have been happening. But, you know.
So that means that more reforms can keep happening if we've gotten to a point where
Nah, you see, that's impossible. That's impossible because he said so.
Ah, dang it. He knows best. I forgot about that.
He's the way of the world. He knows. He's got the biggest brain.
Oh my god, dude. He's big braining me so hard right now. I can't keep up.
We've imported millions of people who despise us and each other into our lands. They have made our towns and cities unsafe, and they jail us for complaining about it.
I don't know where the jail us for complaining about it thing is, besides, like, hate speech laws in Europe, which I think that means European, so it's going to be a little bit of a cultural difference. To our knowledge, in the West, because we are in the West, No, you don't get jailed for complaining and making videos like this, like you have. You're not in jail for making this video, and you're complaining about it, so I guess it's fine.
But I will say that there are cases in which people who have come over have created either violence or the local population is more on edge just because of cultural differences. There have been a few cases. I know there was some in Sweden during the big migration. But
being on edge because of cultural differences is pretty normal. So I mean,
yeah, but that's the thing is he's overblowing this to make it seem like people are just walking in with guns and being like, "Hey, guess what? This is my turf now." And it's like, no.
He sometimes makes half decent points. Like, yes, some people who came in don't like us because they're from countries that teach that America's and like Europe is the worst. And there are some people who want to cause us harm, but that's not millions of people. That's maybe like a few hundred or
it's
maybe a few thousand.
Minority.
Like it's not the majority. Yeah, it's a small minority.
Yeah, it's a small minority of people. And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, 99% of the people are so happy that they're out like they're able to be here in the West. There's a reason why they came over.
Yeah, it's just so they avoid the war is breaking apart our country kind of thing.
Yeah, they're trying to escape just war-torn countries, and they're just so happy to be over here. But there's a small minority, and then people like him are like, they're taking over our country. They're coming in and with guns and violence, and it's like, there's so few people like that.
They tear down our history and denounce it as evil. They censor our culture and tell us what is now acceptable to enjoy. They have morally corrupted generations of our people and taught them to hate themselves.
The tearing down of monuments of slaveholders is very complicated. It's not that you have to hate the history, it's that it's weird to have statues of people who, while they have done good things, are clearly not good people in the modern lens. That's a very complicated issue that I don't 100% agree with, but I don't 100% disagree with, but the way he portrays it, much like a lot of the points he makes, is ridiculous and over-exaggerated and wrong.
I don't mind if they get taken down, as long as they go through the legal way of doing it.
Right,
and
not just
tearing it down. Yeah, yanking them off and destroying them and because I feel like if you went through a diplomatic, at least some people, not all of course, but some people would be like, hey, you know what? There was like a vote. We took down the statue.
You can have a discussion about it and explain rationally why you're doing it, as opposed to what you see here, which is more just an irrational, we're going to yank this thing down because it's a protest and we don't like it. This kind of thing's also really weird, where there's like a stripper in front of children. That's weird. That's not widespread. That's like very rare to see. And yeah, there's still a ton of people who strongly disagree with that, and a lot of leaders who strongly disagree with that. But the argument being made is that we're degenerating our children by exposing them to this because clearly this is a widespread thing, which it isn't. And he's blowing things way out of proportion based on a nugget that might be kind of true.
This absolutely does not happen often. I've never heard of anything like this.
Yeah, it's this, and then like the whole weird story time people. Like, these are very rare things, but they get a lot of media coverage because they're so bizarre and weird. It's weird to point to these kinds of things and say, yes, this is widespread and causing our downfall. Because it's not.
This isn't happening enough to ruin children. Like,
yeah,
this happens.
It doesn't ruin the generation.
Again, it's so few.
Yeah.
It's not as big of a problem as he's saying it is in this.
Especially
and then to go
in the present.
Oh, go ahead.
Especially
in present time. No.
They turn a blind eye when migrant predators prey upon our children.
Paragraph 5.3 of the report says that in 2008, an 11-year-old girl came to the attention of the police after she disclosed that she and another child had been sexually abused by a group of adult males. Just a few weeks later, she was found in a derelict house with another child and a number of adult males. Yet she was arrested, 11 years of age, she was arrested for being drunk and disorderly, and none of the males were arrested. Has your force identified the police officers involved in that and found out what went on?
So I'll actually pause here and say that this is probably the most solid point he brings up, is the whole ignoring of crimes because it's migrants, and the weird, very, very strange way that Britain's dealt with the migrant crisis, and the way that crime is addressed in that issue.
Yeah, when I first saw this, I was genuinely angry. Not at him, but at whoever these people are.
The policeman in Yorkshire.
Yorkshire.
Because, I'm angry about that as well. That's 100% is someone's screwed up in how they're supposed to be administering law.
Yeah, if this is like a real thing, right? Because I assume it is based on what I'm seeing. If it is, this is just one of the worst cases of just misjustice.
Yeah, so like
because it's a migrant.
Yeah, so
because
he
they were
has a
migrants.
legitimate argument to make here, but he's preceded it with a bunch of nonsense, and he's gonna follow up with a bunch of nonsense. But like, there's a point I can agree with.
They empty the prisons of violent offenders to protect them from catching the cough. But who protects us from them?
The police. The police protects us from them.
Well, I mean, based on the last point that he made, can you really trust the police? I mean, come on.
I guess you're right, you know? We should just hire private security firms to run everything for us. You're right.
They have forced us into a struggle to justify our history, culture, and even our very existence. And now they have become a menace to us and our way of life. We owe nothing to them.
Over-exaggerating the situation extremely to the point where nobody can take it that seriously.
What is he even trying to say there? Like, they've come in and we don't owe anything to them for what they've done to us?
And now they're making us question... They're making us justify the fact we exist as white people, like white people used to do to other races.
The more I have seen over the last 4 years, and I have seen a lot, the more convinced I have become that there is no saving the West. It is rotten to the core with cultural Marxism, and things are not going to get any better for us until after it collapses.
So I wanted to posit on the whole boogeyman of cultural Marxism thing, because for the most part, that's still not implemented in the higher governments. Trump and Boris both exist just as a basic refute of that. But also, us is explicitly white people when he's saying that.
Yeah.
He's waiting for the government to collapse so white people can take over again.
Yeah, that he's literally saying, hey, let's wait for the government to collapse so that white people can take back what, was rightfully ours, basically. It's like, hold on.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Hold on a second, sir.
Let's take a little bit back there. I don't understand how you can, this boogeyman of cultural Marxism, because if anything, the last few years have shown the, refutal of some peoples towards that idea, just in the fact that Trump and Boris both got in.
Yeah, hyper-conservative people who are not Marxist in any way have become leaders of the countries they're in, which indicates to me a culture that's more conservative than it is liberal or progressive. But cultural Marxism itself is so much more extreme than that, and I just Googled it and there's a Star of David, so clearly this might be something that's just not even worth talking about.
Yeah.
And the Nazis used it to imply the Jews were running everything.
Ah, there it is.
There it is.
There it is. Oh, no. God. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, though, when you hear... Because, you hear the term thrown around so much of cultural Marxism. Mm-hmm. And it's just I don't think a lot of progressives are communist.
No, a lot of them aren't. A lot of progressives desire equality, but they also understand that communism doesn't work. I know that some of them are also socialist, but that's not all of them.
Again, another can of worms.
Yeah. Cultural Marxism is its own thing that's very dumb. So let's ignore that for the moment.
Get boogeyman.
Yeah. Get Jude.
Last Saturday we saw more violence on the streets of London. Englishmen were responding to the events of the previous week, where packs of non-whites and communists went on the rampage, merrily desecrating our war memorials and historical statues with impunity.
So I'm just going to make a pause. You don't have to necessarily talk about it. But I do like how this man has 3 races in mind. Europeans, non-whites, and communists, which are white people who don't agree with him. That's just the way he's portraying the situation.
It's not like there are so many more
things
in that.
There's no nuance.
But no. Boil it down to just 3.
Yeah.
Europeans, white people who don't agree with them, and every other race.
If you were in that protest, there's nothing you could be besides a communist.
Let's just get rid of all nuance. That's not important at all.
The violent havoc caused by the anti-whites was called largely peaceful. by the media.
It's starting to fade away, but you can see it says, "But were married by scuffles on the Downing Street," which means it was mostly peaceful, but there were still fights that happened.
Like it showed in that article where it was like, yeah, largely peaceful, but they were married by scuffles. Okay, that's fine. But if you just take largely peaceful, I
I'd
don't
also
like.
like to note that I'm just noticing he's highlighting this part of the description that's under London anti-racism protests leave 27
officers hurt. Oh my god, I just noticed that too.
So
Are
he's
you
literally
kidding me?
ignoring the title and reading part of a description to make his point.
Are you kidding me? In the title, it proves that it's not just saying largely peaceful. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
but no, but you don't understand. Clearly, because it's using that descriptor as part of the description, even though it leads with the violence, clearly that means they're trying to imply that it was all peaceful all the time forever.
Yeah, because in this context, largely peaceful makes sense when you lead it off with violence. Bad things happen. It was largely peaceful, but there were scuffles. How do you take that and then say, yeah, but they're just lying to us saying that it was a peaceful protest? No!
It reminds me of, have you seen the post by One Angry Gamer about Celeste?
No.
Essentially, like, he zoomed in on a part of a screenshot of Celeste where it had 2 pride flags. And he's like, oh my gosh, the SJWs are ruining this video game and indoctrinating our youth. And it's so bright. And it was just zoomed in on that. And someone's like, well, just don't look at that part. And he's like, I can't. It's such a big focus. And then someone showed the full image. And it was like a few pixels behind a character's computer in a giant shot of their room.
Oh, God.
And someone was like, dude, just don't focus on that part. It's tiny and insignificant. And Angry Gamer's just like, but I can't look away. It's just like, whoa, hold on a second. You're clearly blowing things out of proportion.
You're blowing things wildly out of proportion and taking this entire news article context here completely out of context by just being like, yeah, he said largely peaceful, so obviously they're lying.
Yeah, ignore
Zooms
the
out a bit.
context. Ignore the context you included in the article page. Just, it was largely peaceful. That's how they're describing the protests. It
What
was
I find
peaceful.
funny-
Ignore the 2 instances of violence that they mentioned. It was peaceful.
Literally, the way that he could have done this is he could have taken the picture and just put cropped out the words largely peaceful to make his point, but he decided to leave the evidence that completely refutes his argument in the point he's making.
Yeah, I think it's because he's lazy at editing. He just took a screenshot. But yeah, listen, I didn't say the way of the world was intelligent. I just said he was the biggest brain.
Media, which is of course linguistic trickery to associate the word peaceful with people who were anything but.
Well, I'm going to pause there. It's also linguistical trickery when you, in a mostly peaceful protest, try to imply that it was completely non-peaceful. Just food for thought. Food for thought.
Yeah, implying that the majority of the people who were peaceful don't exist because some people were violent, and then saying, yeah, you can't say it was largely peaceful.
Oh, God.
However, when whites took to the streets the following week, the media seemed much more comfortable using the word violent.
I'd like to note he says that because he's trying to prove his point, but then he doesn't prove it by actually providing any evidence like he did with the other one. He just says the media was okay with calling them violent. Even he doesn't show another news article to prove that, which means as far as us Americans and the viewer is concerned, he's just saying that and hoping you trust him.
I mean, obviously, why wouldn't I trust him at this point?
You're right, it is the way of the world after all. He's a big brain man.
He's just
I
so
have
smart.
to trust the man, yeah.
There's no reason why I'd distrust this guy after these last 4 minutes.
As usual, the BBC dutifully propagated the anti-white narrative, and it is another once beloved institution that we simply have to let go.
Without evidence.
Despite seeing young Englishmen being stabbed and kicked half to death by packs of anti-white savages, our Prime Minister, who laughingly calls
Source,
himself
please.
a conservative, could only tweet about
I mean, the video that he showed, there was one person on the ground
Yeah, there was a
bleeding.
person on the ground bleeding, and the police were protecting him. And it looks like Boris here, the leader of Britain, is against people attacking the police, which is fair. And I think Boris' statement here is pretty fair and accurate.
Yeah, I have no arguments with this. If you attack the police, be ready to be met with the full force of the law, for attacking a police officer.
The police don't like it when you attack the police? How terrible. What's that? The leader of the police doesn't like it when you attack the police? Who'd have thunk that would happen?
Dude, I'm honestly just shocked right now. Mind is blown that the police don't fill out their application and go, man, I can't wait to get beat up and attacked.
Why can't everyone be darkness? Like...
That's You just throw in an anime reference in your political commentary video?
Yes. I think it's relevant to the situation. This reminds me of that one isekai I saw.
Oh yeah, the one where he travels to a world and he's like, oh god, there's elf girls.
This
world sucks!
That time I was transported to another world with police brutality. Anyways.
Whites today stand condemned and hated for things that happened hundreds of years ago, while anti-whites maim, steal, and destroy with impunity. The white man, the English man, never has justice on his side in this system, and he never will.
That is 100% nonsense. Have you seen the proportion of people who are African American in American jails versus the proportion of people who are white in American jails? Just as a start, he is 100% wrong in that. And there's tons of facts to prove that.
Justice is never on
the European
side anymore? Excuse me? What? Just look at our criminal justice system and say that there isn't at least some form of bias. To say that there's no bias is just, you're wrong. There's at least some bias.
If you wish to make that argument, you have to completely ignore the previous criminal justice system, the current criminal justice system, and the future criminal justice system, because it's still going to have this bias for a while, probably. Like, it's 100% biased towards people who look more Caucasian. Like, that's just a way it is. I will make a note, and this is something his audience might actually agree with somewhat. MRAs like to say that if there's certain crimes, a woman will not be charged as long or for as much as a man because of just implicit biases in the court. And that is identified as like, yeah, you can point to actual statistics that prove that. Just as you can point to actual statistics that prove that white people don't get charged as much or as long as black people for very similar crimes. So to say that the statistics that you can find out there on crime are wrong and there's a bias towards black people and against white people is ridiculous. And of course he doesn't need to use any form of proof to actually make that claim. He just makes the claim.
I don't know how you can you can't defend that point. You can really only say it.
Yeah, you can say that point, but the moment the discussion begins, you're like, oh no, facts?
Yeah.
Oh
facts,
no.
Facts and logic? Shit!
I'm about to be destroyed, dude. Whoa!
God, I got destroyed by facts and logic. Not again.
So you have to ask yourself who is in control of this whole thing, and what is their goal? I certainly don't think all police are anti-white, but at this point it doesn't really matter, because the systems of control in the West are anti-white from top to bottom.
So I'd like to note that this is a point where I realized he's making the all cops are bad argument, but somehow from the other end of the spectrum. Not that all cops are bad because some cops commit police brutality and they're racist, so the entire system needs to be shut down, but rather all cops are bad because some of them aren't racist and are trying to cause equality and are bad because they're not racist, so the entire system needs to be shut down. I didn't realize we'd find the other end of that spectrum, but we have, and it's really weird to see.
How do you even come to that point? I don't. How do you come to the point where you're like, the police are all bad because some of them aren't racists?
The police are all SJWs because
aren't
some
anti-whites. We need to burn it to the ground. Honestly, if we just like take a moment and we send him a thing of like a picture of a black police officer. Hello.
One other black police officer in the background in this photo. So
I know. Yeah, wait, hold on. Yeah, so he's aware. What? I'm so confused right now. My mind hurts.
Listen.
I can't comprehend his big brain.
You don't get inside the mind of someone who's this racist because it just hurts.
I don't.
It's so big and so empty. Like, it's really impressive. It's like a cookie jar.
He's showing a picture of a black police officer while saying that since police aren't all pro-white,
you need to take down the institution of policing.
Take down the institution
and rebuild it as a racist institution.
While showcasing a black police officer.
Let the corrupt anti-white state try, or at least pretend to try, to contain the wrath of the anti-white menace it helped create.
Yeah, so that's the weird point about this video as well, is that the West is going to fall, and the whites should let it fall so that they can just kind of rebuild. But the entire idea that the West is going to fall is because black people exist, and I don't fully follow his line of reasoning with it.
Yeah, so the line of reasoning is the West gonna fall, so therefore we should prepare to take back what is ours once it falls.
Yeah, we shouldn't try
we
to
should-
improve the system that it's in right now. We should just wait for it to collapse.
And then rebuild. But you're starting with the statement that the West has fallen, and his points for that don't make sense.
Yeah.
So you're starting your entire line of logic and reasoning for this entire video
Listen,
on
if the police aren't racist, then what are they
opinions.
doing?
yeah, on opinions you're trying to pass as facts.
Concentrate your efforts on building nationalist communities and devote your time and energy to making your life situation and that of your family more secure for the troubled times ahead.
Why would I build a nationalist community if you don't care about the nation anymore? Hold on a
Yeah,
second.
wait, hold on. So he wants a nationalist community? No. It's not a nationalist as a nation. It's nationalist as in white nationalist, I'm pretty sure.
Ah, yes, a nationalist community. A nationalist socialist community.
So let's just forget our countries, our pride in our countries, and let's just have pride in the fact that we are white.
People are angry at us for our history, so let's ignore our history and just let the countries fall. But let's also defend the countries by being nationalist. Does this man think when he speaks?
No.
Okay.
This harmless sounding movement is full to the brim with anti-white venom, and it has recruited many self-hating whites to its cause.
So, like I mentioned earlier, you're either not a person who's white, or you hate white people, or you're white.
Yeah, and you could not support this movement for any other reason
than if you hate yourself for being
than
white.
if you hate yourself for being white. Not like they have some actual valid points that need to be addressed.
It's not like the movement has been making points and continues to make points that are somewhat valid. And while some of them may be less valid than others, they're all still pretty interesting, and some of them are definitely agreeable. As long as you assume that the person you're talking to views black people as humans who are equal to white people.
That the skin color has no bearing on what you can and can't do in your lifetime, because it really doesn't.
And the corporations also do its bidding, even as their stores are gutted and burned. But make no mistake, anyone siding with this movement will eventually be destroyed by it.
Okay, so the stores are siding with the protesters because the stores want the protesters to please stop looting the stores.
Yeah.
Like, the stores
It's
don't
this
really
act of
have any way to
self-defense.
stop. Yeah, the stores don't have any actual way to physically stop them. So if they side with them, the stores can be like, hey, we're on your side. Please stop burning us down. That's really expensive and really inconvenient.
I mean, I feel so bad for so many of these stores. And also, in this video, can we just point out, there are also white people in this.
Oh yeah, in
Literally.
this shot you can see white people also looting.
It's
no,
not.
These are white people who hate the fact they're white, don't you?
Yeah, but no, what they are is everyone in this are just opportunists.
Yeah.
Taking advantage of the fact that the stores won't do anything.
Yeah.
It just ticks me off that these people are just totally fine stealing other people's, like, what they've earned.
So hold on to your memories of better times. Cherish them, but don't be prisoners to them. Those days are past, and it's time to recognize the reality of the anti-white menace staring us coldly in the eyes. Cultural Marxism.
Can you just... the amount of boogeyman that he had in just that last statement.
Listen.
It's just like, the anti-blacks, like, it's over, all of our good times are gone, the anti-whites...
Listen, you can't
have taken
indoctrinate people
everything.
if they're thinking critically. So what you need to do is scare them so they aren't thinking critically. And this is how you get people to just blindly trust you without doing any of their own research or belief.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And that's what makes me sad, because, like, no, they aren't.
Cultural Marxism.
Cultural Marxism is back.
There it is. There's a hot term.
Yes, we're back to
There
the
it is.
Jews.
1. The long march through the institutions worked.
Oh, it won.
Did it?
On the same day
No.
as Englishmen were being beaten by police and migrants for defending the monuments to their war dead.
That is distinctly a mischaracterization of the situation, but we already discussed that. I just wanted to point out that he's still going with that.
Yeah, he's still going with that, and it was disproved in his own point.
Yeah, listen.
He disproved his own point, and then he's still going on with it.
Listen, I don't think the man's self-aware. It's okay.
On that same day, John Raspail died. You might remember a video I did some while back on Raspail's book.
Ah, sweet. Look, it's more Death of the West. That's neat.
Yeah.
The Camp of the Saints. It was in this book he predicted the end of Western civilization through mass Third World migration, assisted by the Antiwhites who held open the gates for the Trojan horse of multiculturalism.
I will note that it has been a while since the Migrant Crisis began, and for the most part, the economies of the world have been improving. COVID threw everything out of whack, but most nations are as sturdy as they were before the Migrant Crisis began, and while Europe does have some issues related to policing and enforcement of the law when it comes to migrant communities, as he discussed earlier, for the most part, Europe's still fine, and it's more an issue of Brexit is causing a lot of change than the immigrant crisis is causing a lot of change. But
Yeah, the immigrant crisis didn't have nearly as big of an impact as people said.
which is surprising, to be honest. I thought it
Which,
would
yeah.
have more of an impact.
I did too, and it didn't.
It's also time to shed any remnants of guilt about our history and ourselves. If you still feel bad for colonialism, don't. The Africans would have happily colonized us if only they had been able, but of course they wouldn't have given us independence.
Oh boy, my favorite topic. Oh yes, colonialization.
I will make the note that he's incredibly dumb if he doesn't think that eventually we would gain our own independence as well. However, there's a ton of aspects to that. I'm just going to let you talk for 5 minutes, so it's fine.
So my thing about that is, in the point that he made, I feel as though he is correct. I think colonialization would have happened no matter who would have done it. That being said, the fact that he claims that we wouldn't have gotten our independence is so ridiculous. There's nothing that you can that shows that wouldn't happen. It seems like the natural progression of civilization. And can I just add that what he's saying in this Christopher Columbus thing makes me kind of angry.
Yeah, because it's not like colonialism is really anything new. Nations conquered each other for
All
a
the
long
time.
time. Yeah, that was just the way nations were. It's a recent thing that we don't really conquer each other anymore or have colonialism. Like, there's some remnants of it. There's not a ton of things that are left in the world that are big, that are colonies. So it should be noted that conquest and colonization aren't particularly unique to, like, any form of racial systems.
There are some things, right, in which we should say, hey, you know what? At the time, maybe that was what we saw, but now that we've grown as a people, that was bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can acknowledge that
We
it was
can
an
acknowledge
issue
that
in
it
the
was bad.
past, but not do it
Yeah.
anymore.
But that's the thing. Then let's not do it. But when they said you want apologies and reparations from people who are stronger and smarter than you, oh my god.
Yeah.
That's just blatant racism.
Yeah, that's the
That's
issue.
all that
like,
is.
There's a nugget of this could be kind of accurate in here, but then there's also the racist layer on top.
Just
and
straight
it's
up
like,
racist.
Nope.
No, because the thing is that, yes, we colonized, we won because Europe had developed more advanced forms of warfare. Okay, and I assume that Africa would have done the same if that's what they did to us, to Europe. But it makes me angry when you simply say that it's because because we were stronger and smarter. Have you ever heard of the Zulu uprising, where the Zulus almost beat the British with less advanced weapons? It's not because we were stronger or smarter. It's simply because we had more developed forms of warfare. That's it. That's why we were able to colonize so much. That's why Europe was able to own a good chunk of the world for a time.
I'm also going to make a note that the first two lines of this weird little blurb as well are pretty racist, and ignore the whole China thing that exists in the background here, because...
The history of humanity is one of constant conflict and competition for resources like land, food, water, and women. With the fact that Europeans were and are better at this contest than any other race of men in the world.
So
Yeah,
just
have you guys...
ignore Asia.
Hold on. Let's ignore the Mongolians, Chinese, the Persians. Let's just ignore all of those.
Ignore the
throughout
Ottomans.
history.
Yeah.
The Ottomans. Let's just ignore all of that.
Then yeah, Europe might be the best, maybe, but
Yeah,
not
Europe might be.
consistently.
That's the thing, is that this quote has a kernel of something I could agree with. Because yes, history of humanity is a constant conflict and competition for resources. Yes, that's it. That's all I agree with. Everything else, there's some problem with it. Because we as an individual shouldn't feel responsible, but we should understand and acknowledge the fact that some of the things that we did were wrong.
Like, just in the past, that people
Like
with
in
the
the
same
past.
color as us did something bad. Yeah.
Yeah, this just ticks me off because as someone who, literally has heard stories, because my great grandmother was there when the white man came to California, as she would say. It makes me angry because, like, yeah, there are some genuinely bad things that happened, but like, you as an individual shouldn't feel, or you shouldn't feel like you're responsible, but you should acknowledge that yeah, some pretty bad things happened.
You shouldn't feel a bunch of guilt about it. I also would argue you shouldn't feel pride about it.
No.
Considering how you didn't do it, and it's not necessarily a great thing.
If you feel pride for anything to do with the subjugation of other people, did you do it? Because if you did, then I would like to know your location. I'd like to make a phone call to the police department. Yeah, because there's a problem here.
Democracy is finished. Whoever wins the next election, white America loses.
That's not true! That's something that's also really dumb, because Donald Trump has explicitly stated that he's against the protest. He wanted to go against the people that were protesting in the streets and who were looting. He called them violent thugs. He wanted to move in. If you want the whites to be okay, you vote for Donald Trump if this is your weird dichotomy that you have. I'm gesturing towards the video. You can't see that, but I'm gesturing towards the video. If that's your mindset, then you want Donald Trump because he's the best for that kind of thing.
When it comes to this, right? Or the fact that he's stating that no matter who wins, white America is finished. And Donald Trump isn't even, in my opinion at least, a white nationalist, but he still stands for a lot of the ideas that...
Still stands for ideas that benefit white people.
Yes, thank you. I couldn't think of the word benefits.
Okay, it's okay.
It's frustrating to me because the thing about it is that in his own dichotomy, he's claiming that no matter who wins, white people lose, right?
Because
but Donald
the
Trump
leaders are all anti-white, except
White.
for Donald Trump.
But Donald Trump definitely isn't. He's not a white nationalist, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't support things that are in the best interest of most white people.
Yeah.
And just most people in general.
It's not a stretch to say that if you agree with what Way of the World is saying, you probably still align yourself with Donald.
Yeah.
So,
well, no matter what, you'd align with him more than you would with Biden.
Right, yeah. That's very true.
Doesn't make sense in his own dichotomy.
What he's looking for in the nation and a leader is found within the current leader of this nation, but he cannot see it because he just wants the West to fall, and he's really hoping
so that we
happens.
can rebuild it
As
a white nationalist society.
Yes.
Because that will never go poorly,
Yeah,
ever.
it can't go poorly. It's fine.
For the sake of your children, for your own safety and dignity, it's time to take your own side in this struggle. We need you. Until next time, be well.
Oh, wow.
What is, oh no.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right. This exists.
How green politics became an anti-white hoax. Oh my god. Get this off of the screen, please.
I think it's time to be done with this nonsense.
Want to finish up with some final thoughts?
You go ahead and give your thoughts.
I completely disagree with pretty much everything he said in this. Just from a factual standpoint, I have to disagree with most of the stuff. He didn't provide any evidence, except when he did, it almost always disproved what he was talking about, because that's how outlandish his theories were, I guess, or his opinion was. And it genuinely makes me angry to see someone who tries to push something just so divisive to such an extent that he's calling for the fall of our societies. Because we are superior, we will then build better societies with only us, white people. I keep going and saying us because that's how he refers to it in the video. I'm being indoctrinated by this video. It's so outlandish to me to believe that someone's race is superior to another's that I can't understand even the most basic premises in this video, because it all hinges on the fact that white people are superior. That is the entire bottom of, base of this video in which it is built upon. That Western white people are superior to others. And that's just ridiculous to me. I can't follow it. And the very few times that he actually came forth with some decent points, or at least something true, it was immediately muddied. That completely negates the points, that the little kernels of truth he had.
Oh yeah, watching these videos, especially from this guy, watching others of his videos, and witnessing how genuinely wrong he is in things he says, with such boldness and agreement from his audience, is somewhat disturbing to see. He's a man who can speak well and who's able to set a scene pretty well for his videos. However, that's about it when it comes to positives you can say about him, because the ideology he pushes is distinctly one that is racist, nationalist, and wrong. A lot of his claims are completely either fear-mongering nonsense or backed with no evidence, and he doesn't want to back it with evidence. He'd rather just make you afraid, because I get the feeling that the moment he comes forth with any form of evidence for his own points, it would crumble at his feet. There are pieces of what he says that make some sense, and we acknowledged that there were some arguments where, yeah, like you said, it's almost like you could defend a little bit of it, but then it's surrounded by such nonsense and BS that you just can't anymore. It's someone who's out of touch, I think, is the best way of putting it. Well, Nazi also probably would be a good way of putting it, but it's someone who's out of touch with reality, who believes that Europeans are the superior race above all, and it's someone who, through their own twisted view of the world, believes it's dying when it's been more prosperous than ever. And it's hard to really give him much more mind than, oh, yeah, he's a bit crazy, but there's a lot of people who support him. And it's incredibly strange to see how many people blindly believe him on the grounds of just, he said it, so it is true. It's one of those things where it's like, you don't believe that the caricatures that, like, a social justice warrior would bring up truly exist. Like, no, nobody believes that Western civilization's really dying. That's just something some people say because they're stupid. But no, there are people who genuinely believe and support this ideology, even though it makes little to no sense when you bring any form of scrutiny towards it.
Yeah, the moment you bring any sort of facts or look at it with a closer lens, it all just falls apart immediately.
If you think about it for longer than a second, you realize, oh wow, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching whatever this was.
This was an experience.
Yeah. We might do this again going forward. Might not. We don't really know, but we wanted to at least try it.
Yeah, we're giving it a shot. Thanks for watching. If we come out with more, if you want to see more of this, let us know.
Yeah, I hope to find you again somewhere else, out in the world. I couldn't include his name in some form of, like, ending thing. I'm sorry.